Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I'm going to be doing a head-to-head battle between the Cold Steel Knives FM-1 and the Civivi Knives Vision FG. Now, this is going to be a little weird because the different price points. This costs twice as much, but this also has significantly more premium materials. The execution coming from both of these brands is quite subjective, and a lot of it is based within opinion. Now, while I have experienced many things from the wonderful civivi, WE, and Sencut line, I have only handled a handful of things from Cold Steel, some of their older models, some of their big stuff, some of their smaller stuff, but nothing really from their premium stuff. But because they have brought this model into the market in a premium format, it needs to be judged accordingly. So I just want to start off with saying that this entire video is going to be completely opinionated. If you are a Cold Steel cult crackhead, you probably will not like a lot of the things that I have to say about this knife. But I want to let you know, I love this thing. It's freaking great. Do I think it's overpriced? Just a tiny bit, but you know what? I could say that you're definitely paying just a tiny bit for the name. Really not the end of the world. If you're really seeking out the design, you're gonna love it. But if you are also maybe not a fan of Chinese produced knives, well, this is made in China and this is produced in Taiwan. We all know that things cost significantly more in Taiwan, maybe not as much as they do in the US, but they're close, not super close. But we're going to do a couple things. We're going to talk about the build quality, in use, in carry, fidgetability. We'll take the weight, and then we'll break down the materials and just kind of nitpick them, break it all down, and even talk about how easy it is to do basic maintenance, because I'm talking from a actual owner's standpoint, somebody that doesn't just have these sitting in a box for their entire existence. I love using both of these. The reason why my Vision FG is a size comparison size knife, it's because it has earned that spot because I love using it so much. While it may not have the most performance oriented blade, I still love the overall delivery of the item itself. So we can start off by doing the weight. Again, different materials here. With the Cold Steel FM-1, we have a very simple, slim construction. The backspace piece, the actual Atlas lock itself here, it is steel. You do have a steel clip, a large steel blade, of course, steel studs, steel like hardware and all that, but very simple slabs of titanium for the scales with no internal milling. But because it is very well contoured, there's some machining as well. All these little elements bring down the weight significantly. I would consider this to be a full-size knife. 3.8, 3.9, pretty impressive for the actual size. Now, with the Vision FG, we have, of course, a steel blade, a lot of steel components, including the clip. This is the factory clip. I believe you can put a titanium clip on this as well that will turn the T6 does the T8s. That's a different story. We're running this thing as stock. G10 scales with proud steel liners that offer weight relieving through the holes, which is part of the actual design. I believe this thing is going to be a little bit heavier, and also the super lock itself, designed by Snex, is also a steel component. So yeah, there you go. This thing is, I would say, significantly more heavier, and you notice it. You absolutely notice it in hand. Now let's talk about how it feels in hand. It's about as blocky as it looks, but it's really not that bad in use. One thing that may have a little bit of people on edge about purchasing this model, if you haven't had one in hand, you may look at this and say, closed profile, looks a little funky, I'm not a fan of the holes, there's weird stuff going on here, the way that the super lock sticks out like that, and when the blade is open, it looks a little bit better, it looks a little bit, like things start to make sense. But there's still this little weird spot right here that's just the execution overall, how the blade is shaped. That doesn't bug me so much. That's not sharp by any means. But the Super Lock, it looks like a hotspot, a real hotspot, whether it's just visually speaking or actual in use. But at least for me, when I notice, because there is no real, I guess, suggestion of where your fingers should land in a multitude of grip positions. You can be back here if you want, I guess choked up, which is definitely the way to go, being choked up in this larger, roomier finger choil there. No jimping on the spine, so that's all smooth there. Should have been some jimping, but not the end of the world. You would think that that Super Lock would kind of dig into your palm. I have large to extra large size hands, but slim fingers. So while I may have less meat on my hands, if you have, I suppose, meatier hands than me, at least for me, this lands right in a spot where the skin creases and it just barely rests on top of it. So there is naturally already a gap right under my thumb as I'm putting pressure on the spine. So the Super Lock fills in that gap, and it actually feels a whole lot more comfortable than you would think. So for the people that have owned this knife and the different variations that have been brought to market, and yes, while there is a premium one, I'm gonna just pretend that one doesn't exist because it was honestly a fail. The budget one is definitely the way to go. There is a whole lot of value here for sure, but it is relatively hand filling for what it is. You can notice though that there is zero contouring. It's just rounded off edges all the way around. So, but again, very simple, sleek handle without any aggressive suggestions of where you should place your hands and things like that. Now the pocket clip itself, while a lot of people may not be the biggest fan of it, it is executed quite well. Functionally speaking, it's just fine. It has, I'd say, a relatively aggressive ramp, but in and out of the pocket, it's wonderful. A flat spot under there, milled into the scales, and with flat screws, a wonderful execution of that. So this thing in hand, in use, wonderful. Absolutely love it. Now we can talk about the FM-1. This thing is coming from a slightly different approach. A little bit slimmer, a little bit more gentlemanly. We could actually go and put these guys up side to side. So as you can see, that the whole FM-1 actually fits in the size thickness of the Vision FG. So it is noticeably thinner in hand. If you are not a fan of thin knives, you may not like this. But if you like the design enough, you're willing to burn some money, and you want to pick it up, you may be quite surprised that it is very well rounded and sculpted in certain areas that count. So this is not technically contoured scales. They're flat, but the machining, the softening of the edges, it is so exaggerated and just gives a feel as if it is contoured. It is still very slim in a hand, but it feels like it's actually premium. Like it actually feels really nice in hand. Also, this little space right there, it's on both sides. These scales are absolutely symmetrical. Another thing too, you can flip the clip just on the Vision FG as well. What was I gonna say? So yeah, there's these little scallops right here. Everything is well softened. The tumbling or bead blasts, whatever finish you want to call, that is applied to this, the standard finish, it is very soft. It is very comfortable. I absolutely enjoy it in hand. Again, you notice that it is slim, significantly slimmer, especially if you're transitioning from something like this to something like that. So you'll definitely feel the girth in hand, and some people may not like that, but that is something that is worth mentioning. So this is going to ride a little slimmer in pocket, be a little bit lighter in pocket, and then sorry for the little interruption there. So going to the pocket clip, you can see it is a whole lot shorter than the Civivi standard pocket clip. It rides in the pocket just as well. The available room underneath is damn near the same. The ramp is a little bit tighter, a little bit shorter on the cold steel here, and it actually is angled down a little bit, while the Vision FG is pretty straight and flat with the actual clip. So if you have very thick pant material, this could snag a little bit going in. You may need a little bit of assistance with your other hand or a separate finger to get this over, but the strength, the tension of the clip itself, because it is so stout and short, and this is essentially some tension relief right there. The retention is relatively light in comparison to the civivi one. The civivi one is significantly stronger. I'm talking maybe 2.5 the amount of strength, basically pinching the clip to the scale in your pocket. So if you're not the biggest fan of a shorter pinchy clip, this may not be something that you will like. But if you like how it looks, just know that there is zero hotspot. Functionally speaking, it's just fine with average pant material, and because of the weight, slimness, and size overall, this could be something that you could actually throw into some casual slacks, some dressy slacks, and I don't really think it would weigh it down much. If this is something that you want to carry, it shouldn't be too awkward to have in your pocket for the day. This is actually sitting on top of the scales versus having a little milled spot there. You see that on the Vision FG. So a little bit cleaner delivery of, pocket placement, pocket clip placement. Flat screws as well, T6 here, T6 there, same thing. Deployment methods, studs, double-sided studs, very comfortable. Functionally speaking, they are both wonderful. Here on the Vision FG, you could see these are pretty standard civivi, Sencut. This is the typical shape that they use for their studs. They're very well polished, rounded dome at the top with two, we'll say there's two little ledges on there, and the same on either side, allowing for very easy manipulation of deploying the blade. Now this guy is a little weird, because when you look down on it, you can see it is not symmetrical. It's actually larger on one side than the other. It's about what I would say 35 to 40% bigger on one side than the other. Not a big deal at all, visually speaking. It doesn't bug whatsoever. What it does allow is that now the stud actually protrudes just a tiny bit above the scale, so you can't miss it. It's freaking great. Now the reverse, you have to kind of stick the meat of your finger or your nail underneath right behind, but because there is a little flathead slot right there to unscrew it if you wanted to flip-flop for whatever reason. Let's say you were a lefty, and the wonderful thing about both of these offerings here is that they are 100% lefty friendly. You can flip the clips. The locking and engagement mechanism is the same, interacting with them both ways. So you could just leave it as is, but if you really wanted to put the larger or taller side stud on this side, you can definitely do that, but leaving it as is, how it comes from the factory, it's just fine. And that little cutout right there for the stud, it actually adds a little bit of traction on the top surface, so it kind of snags your skin. It's not sharp, it's not going to cut you or anything like that. But one major difference when it comes to talking about the studs is you can very easily remove that stud for whatever sort of thing you want to do to the blade. Let's say you want to do a custom finish, or you just want to really get down and clean this thing because it got really gross. Everybody should use their knives right, so things get gross after once in a while, and sometimes crud can get stuck around your studs. It's a common thing. If you have a lot of studded knives, you know what I mean. There's always like lint and crap that gets stuck around them, so you gotta take like a Q-tip or something and wipe around. That's something that I typically have to do. Downside with these guys is that they are either screwed or press fit in. I believe these guys are actually screwed. I have taken them apart on previous models that I've checked out from the company overall, not on this particular one, because while using some toothed pliers to do that, you do actually mar up the studs, which again, not the biggest deal in the world, but you are essentially damaging the studs while just trying to take them off for whatever reason you have to take them off. So the winner for studs would definitely be here on the cold steel, because it's very easy to take them off. Blade stock thickness, I don't have exact measurements. I will be linking both of these down, and if you want to go and compare specs, I'm just going to be speaking from a perspective of somebody who's actually carried and used them quite a bit, sharpened and reprofiled both of them multiple times. The blade stock thickness on the cold steel is visually significantly thicker than on the civivi offering here. Out to the tip as well, it is thinned out quite a bit, while the cold steel has a good bit of strength still out to that tip. So there's benefits and disadvantages to that. But what I will say is that when these are at fresh, both having fresh edges, the performance on both of them is incredible, absolutely wonderful. I will say that the only real difference that I feel is a tiny bit more sliciness, more thinness, because of the obvious thickness of the blade with the Vision FG, and of course having a more utilitarian oriented blade shape, you stay in the cut a little bit more securely. But even then, it's a very easy workaround with this. This is a very lengthy, subtle bellied, I guess you could call it spear point, drop point, something along those lines, but it is not difficult to do utilitarian tasks. You do not have to cant your wrist as much to get down to the tip and put it to good work, good use, I guess. Other things that we could talk about: the blade itself, the execution of plunge grind, sharpening trolls, elite, freaking wonderful on both of them. A little bit better on the civivi offering, only because there is actually this relatively roomy space for a choke up position, while you have this kind of awkward looking thing going on here with the cold steel FM-1. Now, this could have been redesigned a little bit differently, and I understand why they did it. It's how it kind of like, there's a flat spot that needs to interact with the inside of the actual Atlas lock. It's basically like the stop in a way. That's just kind of how it works. But I will say that when it comes to disengagement, if you ever disengage like that with one of these locks, if you're using your thumb to disengage, you can do that, and you can see that there's plenty of room as the blade is coming down, so you don't really have to worry. This is something that even on my my full review of this that I recently posted a couple of days back, I'd say that this is actually a little bit of a safety hazard, because if your index finger is a little bit lower and you disengage with your thumb, because that's how you may prefer to disengage locks like this, the live edge can actually come down and nick you right there. And I actually provided a great example of that by actually doing that to myself, and I nicked myself a tiny bit, whatever, not that big of a deal. But it's something that if you are in a position where you can't afford to get cut or something because you're in a really dirty work environment, chances are you're probably already wearing gloves. This may not be the knife for you. If you are in a more, I guess, cleaner working environment, this is something that could be easily avoided by just not disengaging that way. So there's that. We could talk about disengagement, because this is something that I believe is quite important to discuss on both of these because of how the lock is. So this is basically a positive disengagement, this is a negative disengagement. What I mean by that is, visually speaking, the super lock sticks out, while the Atlas lock is actually embedded and further in, meaning it's negative, and this is coming out. So that's protruding, that's positive. So you have this very welcoming ledge with jimping, might I add, that is executed extremely well. It could have been brought down a little bit further around with the same amount of aggression, because the jimping on here, as you can see, it is wide, it is soft, but up here it is short and grabby and feels quite nice. Now, the execution of the jimping on this is essentially garbage. It works, but you really gotta mash your fingers into it, because if you look at the jimping itself, it is very inconsistent. Some of the jimps are not straight, and they have little to no aggression, and they are super shallow, have very little bite at all. So that's obviously a downside if maybe your hands are a little bit slicker. If you have some callus on your fingers, you don't need to worry about it, because it's really not that big of a deal. But if you got soft hands or softer hands, or maybe you just put on lotion, whatever, this might be a little slick for you. I'm being real with you guys. This is a little slick if you have any sort of daily moisturizer on your hands. It's important to, have basic maintenance with your own skincare, but these are, you could really see the quality of difference in the execution of the jimping here. It's practically night and day. These are excellently straight, grabby, they have plenty of bite but aren't obnoxiously aggressive, while on here they are kind of crossed. The depth on them are not even at all, and the execution is just poor overall. That is what it is. It's just straight facts. So there's a little downside. It's very easy to work around it. You get used to it eventually. Again, when it comes to the disengagement with the Vision FG, you have plenty of knife handle to hold on and just filling in hand, as I mentioned earlier, and you can pull down with your index. If you want to pull down with your thumb, that's very comfortable as well, and you can have full confidence that that is not going to come down and bite you because of the way that it's shaped. But this, again, a little bit of a different story. Because of the way it's shaped, you have to have your finger a little bit further up onto it and then pull down with your thumb if that's the way of disengagement that you choose. So it's a safety thing. I believe it's worth pointing out. The disengagement interaction is definitely won by the super lock designed by Snacks. So what else could we talk about? We could talk about the ease of maintenance and disassembly. This guy wins by a long shot, absolutely. You will need a T6 and a T8 bit, just the same as on this guy right here, but the construction of how this is all put together, stupidly simple. Like, it's really simple, super easy to work with. This has phosphor bronze washers and nylon washers within the pivot, and while it did come a little crunchy from the factory, just a little bit of clean, a little bit of use, and this thing is butter. You're still not gonna have the same sort of loosey-goosey action you get with bearings, which this has. So you may not like that has washers. It's okay, it's a subjective thing. I think they both absolutely have their place, so I wouldn't trade out either or. This actually has some skiff bearings just because I had some that fit, and I wanted to see if I would actually notice a difference because of the way that this knife operates. No, I don't really notice much of a difference, honestly. Super, just check that out. Super loosey-goosey. Side to side, there's nothing there. Up and down, nothing there. The same exact thing on this guy over here. The solidity of the lock, it's wonderful. It's everything that you want and expect it to be. It's gonna hold up to harder use, borderline abuse use, if things ever got to that point for whatever reason. So this again comes from the factory with bearings. The stock bearings are just fine. You don't need to put skiff bearings. It's almost pointless. One cool little feature about this is that it has this little hole right here that is referred to as the maintenance hole. You could see the super lock, the little tab that interacts, sits right behind the blade. That is essentially the only point of contact the only point of actual surface area contact between blade material and locking material. This actually has twice as much, if not 3 times as much, surface area being contacted. So some may say it is arguably more effective in just being held up overall. I'm not one to, I guess, argue when it comes to the solidity of lockups. I think that these guys are equal, but from a visual standpoint, the FN1 has more surface area contact. And if that is something that inspires confidence in you, this may be something a little bit more your speed if you really care about all that surface area contact. Now, when it comes to any lock stick, because the more surface area contact you have, the higher chance of lock stick you get. And when it comes to disengagement methods like this, lock stick plus the weird fidgety disengagements that are available here, it's a bad mix, a real bad mix. So these knives have to be made within a certain tolerance to actually avoid having constant lock stick. Now, this is relatively new, and there aren't really any reports at this time of people having horrendous lock stick that is worthy of complaining, putting in reports, returning items, or just being spread all throughout the community. This, on the other hand, I have heard many accounts claim that they have horrible lock stick, and I have experienced it myself many times. Even now, owning this thing for almost a year now, I still every once in a while experience lock stick when this thing has a lot of pocket lint. It's just something that just happens with this. Everything is screwed down properly. I know how to maintain and maintenance a knife to keep things clean. When it comes to applying oils, things like KPL, things like that, to allow for ultimate smoothness within the pivot. I will say that any excess liquid definitely will add to the potential of you having lock stick. Right now, I'm lucky and this thing's playing nice with me. I have 0 stick, but on the disengagement, I can almost feel as if it is there still a little bit, but it is smooth. This, on the other hand, 0, like nothing at all. Maybe like the first time I took this apart and cleaned it, maybe I had like 1 or 2 disengagements where it was just kind of setting itself right, and took a Q-tip to that little space right there, cleaned it out in there, and it was gone. It stayed gone this entire time that I've had it. While I've owned this knife for a much shorter amount of time, I have not experienced any lock stick, so that is extremely impressive, especially because this has a whole lot more surface contact with the locking material and the blade itself. So that is really wonderful. I think that is just awesome. It's a little quality of life improvement. It really is, to not be worried if the next time you disengage while you're fidgeting, you're gonna really jam your finger onto that and it just be stuck. That hurts. That doesn't feel good, and it's annoying, honestly. That is not something that is common when it comes to things produced by we civivi Sencut. Lock stick, lock rock, things like that, they're not a common thing. But when it came to the execution of this super lock, that is something that you will hear around in the community. You will hear multiple accounts of people who own these knives, or maybe have just checked them out, that will claim that the lock just kind of feels like it just wants to get stuck. Maybe that inspires confidence with some people, but to me, it's kind of annoying. Regardless of that, I still love the knife. So, like I said, for right now, it's actually playing nice with me, and I don't have any issues with it. This thing, essentially out of the box, the disengagement has been butter. It's been pretty darn good, and I can fidget with this thing a lot. Talking about fidgetability, it's wonderful on both of them. It's just the main parts that you're going to be interacting with are the locks itself, the super lock here and the Atlas lock. Obviously, we talked about the jimping execution is better on the civivi than it is on the cold steel, which that could be improved upon, but I'm not really surprised that is on this cold steel, even at $200. So That's another thing that we could start talking about as well. This is $200 while this is just at $100. This has a cheaper variation. It's like riding around $68 to maybe $78. It has Nitro V and it offers a different scale, color, or material like Lexan, Ultim. I don't think there are any wooden ones yet. Definitely micarta is available as well, while this right here, the FM-1, only has 2 variations, and the only other variation besides the example that I have here to share with you guys today is a fully blacked out one. I don't believe that it is a DLC blackout. It's I believe on the website, Cold Steel's direct website, it says it is a PVD coating, and it is about $30 to $35 more for an all blackout. It looks cool. If that's your vibe, then go ahead and pick it up. I think if you really want it, you can justify and swing the extra money for the extra, time being put into the process of applying said coating. So there's definitely a whole lot more variety when it comes to what Civivi offers. And even still, I would say that Cold Steel is a much larger company than Civivi Sencut, and they should absolutely be able to bring this to the market at a more affordable variation. Cold Steel is known for working with a multitude of different blade materials, and based off of how this thing is designed, I can say with full confidence that I could see them, if of course they choose to do so, to bring the FM-1 into their light series, or a more just affordable one overall. G10, if they made one with G10 slabs, G10 is plenty durable enough to hold up at this thickness, especially because this is not really a design that's intended to be hard used or run over by a tank. So for any individuals that own tanks, don't run over your knives, because that's not what they're meant to do, and it proves essentially nothing. I think it would be pretty cool if Cold Steel brought this to market. Even if they have the premium one now, they can see how well, or maybe not how well it did, and really listen to their followers and see what do people actually want. Out of my comment section alone, when it comes to the posting of content showing off this knife, there are countless people that are saying the same thing, singing the same song: this is too expensive. And that is a completely justified complaint there. This is expensive. Yes, $200 for what is being delivered here. In comparison to other things in the community, we're not really going to do that much. We're talking about what this thing is, how it feels. Is this actually $200 worth of material and execution? No, it's more close to like 165, 175, maybe 185, something around there. But $200 and even higher for the blacked out one, it is a little bit much. And I'd say that at that point, the little bit extra is just going because you're paying for the name. So that's something that I could definitely say there. But I think it would be pretty cool if they brought this with a more affordable blade material. They're better stuff, they're like garbage material. Put something decent there, right? And then G10, and then everything else could essentially stay the same. But I can definitely see even that variation still being quite a ways away from what Civivi is able to accomplish for the money. So if what I'm saying here is essentially, if Cold Steel tried to make a direct competitor with this, they could not, and most likely will not, get it down to the same price point. They would probably, so this is around $100 for this variation, but let's say we go to look at the Nitro V variation. If Cold Steel tried to make one with a similar competing steel, Nitro V or 14C28N, or maybe 154 CM, something around those lines with G10 and everything else staying the same, I could see that realistically being brought to market at around like maybe like $110 to $125. That's just my speculation there. I can be completely off, and they could actually knock it out of the park and bring it down under $100. I don't know. It's just pure speculation from my point. And that really is all that I have to say about these two. Now, when it comes to comparing them, right? Same length, performance-wise, are both great. This has budget material for the blade, but I did opt for the one with the Damascus cladding on the sides just because of visual appeal. The execution of this blade is beautiful. The execution of this blade right here is freaking spectacular. The stonewash wall, it is a little fuzzy with all the oil and schmuck that's on it because I've been using this a lot. The execution and consistency of a stonewash is freaking just top notch, just right there up with the rest of them, which is, I'm very proud to say that. This, on the other hand, can get scratched up very easily in different angles of the light. The polished material here, while it looks very consistent and shiny and all, in certain light, and if I had a better camera, you will see that this thing is just riddled with scratches. It's just what it is. The Nitro V1, maybe it doesn't scratch up as much. They have a black version, but also regular satin one as well. We all know satin's gonna look like shit after just taking it out of the box, but that's what you get when you buy a satin blade. Regardless of what material you got it in, it's gonna happen. So any marks, riding in a different direction than the satin itself, it's just gonna stand out like a sore thumb, and I think it's ugly. Again, that's just a visual preference thing here. I love that the blade material that's offered here, this is S35VN, CPM S35VN, if I didn't mention earlier, which I'm sorry if I didn't, I should have, because that is very important. Clearly a more higher performing blade material than what is here. This is like a VG10 or 9CR, I think 18 MOV comparison, Damascus, something like that. It's okay for what it is, but because of everything else that's offered in this package, I love having it, and I don't mind sharpening it when I need to. We can talk about sharpening as well, so I guess I do have a lot more to say about this. Again, from a use perspective, reprofiling both of these, this was super easy. This was an absolute pain, only because this blade was actually extremely well heat treated and the blade material was hard as hell. So that's awesome. Thumbs up for cold steel, absolutely. And this was just a little bit easier to sharpen, also because the edge from the factory was way better on this than that. And I'm talking about not just the sharpness, but the execution of said edge. I had to remove a lot of material from this to get things nice and even from tip to heel. This, not so much, a little bit here and there, but once you reprofile it on your sharpening system that you're comfortable with, you can have confidence in the future that knowing that it's probably only gonna take you like 5-10 minutes to touch it up, and you'll be good to go and back to work. So now I think that's it for comparing and going back and forth. Do I say that one is better than the other? It's really hard because we're talking about something that is twice the price of the other one. So while Cold Steel has the ability to bring this to the market in comparable material to this, chances are they would still cost a little bit more. Now, factoring the fact that you're paying a small percentage for the name of Cold Steel, and you're not really doing that with Civivi, at least. Maybe you do it a little bit with the Wii stuff nowadays, but with Civivi, a lot of their stuff, the pricing still makes sense for now. For now, fingers crossed they keep it like that way for a while. But the pricing on this makes sense. I can easily say that there is definitely $100 worth of materials and fit and finish and execution here. This, not so much. And really based off of that alone, I'm gonna go ahead and say that the Vision FG whether I have, you know, this Damascus variation or the slightly more performance oriented Nitro V, I'd say that there is just as much or more value in this still than this. So while this is a wonderful offering from Cold Steel, I do definitely say that I'm actually going to say that the Vision FG here is still the winner. I know some people are tired of seeing this thing around because everybody's ranting and raving about it. And if you don't have it or have never experienced it, you probably should to really solidify your own opinion on it, because it's very easy seeing things just through a camera lens, or looking at it on your phone, your computer, whatever, your TV. Hey, if I'm on your TV, that's pretty cool. But I will say that from a owner and actual user's perspective, taking these things apart, doing basic maintenance, this is harder to maintain. And the fact that I get so much lock stick on this pisses me off. But even still, besides all that, I love this thing. I freaking love it. What is being offered here, it is truly excellent, and it has definitely risen to the top of one of my favorite knives that I've picked up this year. And yeah, we're only into the, we're getting closer to the end of the year. This is still a pretty sweet offering, and I hope to see some more premium stuff coming from Cold Steel. Just please make it make sense. Cold Steel, please make things make sense, because there are a lot of companies right now pulling real stupid shit with people who don't have time to play stupid games when it comes to pricing materials and what they actually deserved for their hard-earned money. Both of these guys are absolutely justified in their pricing at the end of the day. If you love how this looks, go ahead and pick it up. You're gonna love it. If you like how this looks, same thing here. But for me, my biggest takeaway is going to be the Vision FG. It's going to continue being a wonderful user, a beater knife, a size comparison knife, an all-purpose thing. And the FM-1 is going to be something that I will fidget and play with a lot and take out to slightly nicer occasions versus this guy right here. So that's pretty much it. This was a long video. If you actually did stick around all the way to the end, thank you so much. You guys are just used to hearing me just ranting and raving about all different things. Maybe I just bitch about things too often, but I'm not made of money just like the majority of you guys, so I'm speaking from a perspective of somebody who had to work to buy these knives. And while they are not ridiculously expensive or grail level knives, I have zero sort of, I guess, influence from either or company. Realistically speaking, there are things that I'm not the biggest fan about that We Knife Company is doing now, with a lot of their pricing, visually speaking. And while I haven't handled a lot of their newer stuff, it doesn't look like they've really been too creative. This is actually standing out quite a bit from a lot of the stuff that Cold Steel is doing. So this is truly one of the first iterations into something that is being brought, and I could actually look forward to nicer, more premium things coming from Cold Steel. You're probably going to see a lot more models on my channel, and I never thought I'd actually say that, but this has impressed me so much so that I'm willing to come around to Cold Steel, absolutely. So, but Cold Steel doesn't need my money. It's, I'm just one other person. I'm a freaking drop of water in the sea. It doesn't really matter. I'm just here to share my voice, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I put in more videos and content from you guys this way. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.